Talk USC football here with Greg, and he says, Lee, do you think Lincoln Riley is on the hot seat this year?
It's really interesting because guess who's coming to the USC campus? Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll has been hired to be an adjunct teacher in athletics at USC. That's going to be fascinating because I think he's teaching a course in sports motivation or sports philosophy or something of that nature. The minute that happened, my dentist emailed me and said, Pete Carroll on campus, replace Lincoln Riley. No, that's too quick, too soon. I don't think so. I don't think Pete wants to coach anymore. But Lincoln Riley's, this is a tough year because last year was a tough year, and this is a tough year because there's no Caleb Williams there, Greg. And I think you add into the equation, he lost a lot of skilled people. He lost virtually all his running backs. He lost a chunk of his wide receivers. He has a new defensive coordinator, though the reviews on D'Anton Lynn, who jumped from UCLA to go to Southern Cal, have been really positive. But, they're going with a sixth-year quarterback. Miller Moss showed up here and threw 6 touchdowns in the Holiday Bowl and said, wow. And they got a really great young wide receiver. So he's got a lot of new faces, but that's a dynamic offense. But that schedule is hard. I mean, I don't know how you survive LSU Michigan right out of the gate. I mean, can you imagine if they were 0-2?
Oh, that's very possible.
Yeah.
I mean, but how long of a deal did Lincoln Riley sign?
Forever.
That's like 6-8 years, something like that.
Tremendous.
And we're in year 3, I think?
Yeah.
So I don't think he's on the hot seat. I mean, obviously the fan base and the university wants him to win, but now it's a lot harder to win in the Big Ten.
Well, after the debacle defensively over the last year and a half to 2 years, we'll see how good D'Anton Lynn is, whether or not they got enough players. They've got a great defensive tackle, but they don't have a lot of people around them because they've lost a bunch of players and they hadn't recruited very well. So Lincoln Riley's got some things to prove, but he's such an offensive genius. I mean, his offenses, I think, they're going to challenge all the defenses in the Big Ten because nobody in the Big Ten throws the ball like Caleb Williams threw it out here at USC. So they're running the same formations and the brand new wide receivers and the one star that they've got. So I'll be intrigued to see if Big Ten defenses can hold up.
The season starts in August, right? Or is it in September?
Last weekend of August.
Yeah, that's what usually always works out that way. So that's like a week away.
LSU, Michigan, right out of the gate.
That's hell. That's tough.
That's really tough.
Yeah. What's the nickname for the LSU stadium? It's
it's in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the Swamp?
No, that's in Florida.
Yeah.
I'll think of it. It'll come to my mind.
But they got to go there and they got to go to the Big House.
No, Big House. Michigan comes here.
Oh, okay. I got them all mixed up.
But that's Michigan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Greg, thank you for joining us. This will be fun going forward. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Angel. And actually, no, let's start here with Callan. And I'll get to Angel in a moment. Callan says, I know the Oilers were stuck in salary cap purgatory, but goodness, Lee, how about St. Louis's offer sheets to Broberg and Holloway? Do you think this starts a new trend with more offer sheets?
Well, no, it does not, because if you're going to pay somebody a grossly high amount, that means you got to fit it under the cap. St. Louis had cap space. Not very many teams did. Broberg is a number 1 pick who has spent 3 years in Bakersfield in the American Hockey League. Got to see him, played pretty well down here, but he couldn't play well up there. He showed up at the end of last season when they desperately needed a defenseman with the Oilers. And he played really well to the point he was dressing for every Stanley Cup playoff game. And anyhow, he made, I want to say, $1.2 million on the final year of his deal. St. Louis signed him to $4.5 per year. That's a phenomenal pay hike. And are you sure that Broberg is a lock-in, lock-down type of defenseman that you're going to give him a pay raise from the 1s to 4.5? And they did the same thing for Holloway, who's a physical guy and could score some goals and played well at the end of the season. But, you're taking him from $1 million and you're giving him $3 million. The total value was $13 million over 2 years for the two players. Edmonton just could not do it. But so I don't think offer sheets to restricted free agents are going to become commonplace unless you got a lot of cap space and you're willing to take a gamble on guys. But Edmonton got dinged on this a little bit because I thought Broberg was devolving finally into a good player. But I mean, outside of myself and maybe him, I wouldn't give anybody 1.4 million to 4.5, but I deserve it. Maybe he does too. But obviously the Oilers said no. And they couldn't do it because of the cap issues.
Well, they have a lot of other big payroll guys on.
Oh.
Yeah, so they
And
only
they got to sign Leon Draisaitl at the end of this coming season.
Yeah, exactly. So they have to make prioritization. But the NHL has got a flood of revenue, right? I mean, there's a lot more money going around. So if these players can get, go from the 1 point something to the 4 point something million, go for it, man. More power to you.
The capitalist speaking here. He gives everybody anything they want. He's absolutely amazing. He wouldn't survive as a general manager. Okay, next question, fans forum.
Okay, let's go here to John. He goes, I guess it's too late to see if Trevor Bauer can still habla inglés.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if he got hurt. He was 10-0 out of the gate, and I've not been able to find that he's pitched in the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if there's an arm injury, but nobody's touching him because he's toxic. And again, you have to be on a roster by September 1 to be eligible for postseason play. And at this point, I've heard nothing that anybody's interested in signing Trevor Bauer. And like I say, I've tried to keep tabs on the Mexico City what's their nickname? Diablos.
Diablos, yeah.
Try to keep tab on a week-by-week basis, and he has not. I don't think he's pitched in the last 2 weeks, so there may be some type of arm injury. But he was 10-0 out of the gate with a 1.50 ERA.
Dude's legit. I mean, he's a great pitcher. I just saw a video. I think it was on Twitter or Instagram, and it was in a like a hitting facility that has a mound, because it's indoors. And Bauer was pitching. It was a rookie, a minor league batter. And they had the camera behind the catcher. And so I could see the movement of the ball. It was like unbelievable. Yep. And he threw the curve, he threw the slider, he threw the 2-seam and the 4-seam, and that hitter didn't have a chance. So I'm shocked that he still hasn't gotten a second chance, forgiveness in the Major League Baseball.
Colin Kaepernick didn't.
No.
So maybe Trevor Bauer's walking down that same road. I like you, I'm stunned. John, thank you for the question.
Okay, let's go to Angel now, and this is a two-parter. First, about the Padres. Should be a fun series between the Padres and Mets. San Diego has been the hottest team unless they have a September collapse. They should be in the playoff. As for the Mets, it's the power of the grimace.
That's what Riley said. They dug a big hole, had a bunch of injuries in the everyday lineup. Their pitching has been really stable. I mean, we talked at the front end of the show. If you had told me the Mets would be in a wild card playoff chase with Sean Manaea and Jose Quintana as the front of the rotation guys, you told me that in spring. I said, nah, you've been drinking too much. But those guys have pitched really well, and they've hung in there. And they had, they lost Edwin Diaz, the closer, for about the first half of the season. He came back and he wasn't right, but he's dialed it in since that point in time. So they like Carlos Mendoza. I think he's done a good job as their manager. So collectively, they're playing pretty well together. And like I said, I think 44-26 since Memorial Day. They're just a shade above 500, so that shows you how really raunchy they were first couple of months of the season. But this will be a good series, and Padres can't afford to get on a skid here because the Dodgers are 4 up on them right now, and Arizona's got all these injuries, and that's a big issue. Arizona's lost 3 of their best bats; they're all on the DL, and Arizona can't afford to slip too far back either.
It wasn't too long ago that we did one of those 1-minute vertical videos where you were bashing on the Yankees, the Mets, and the Padres, saying that the big money spending isn't working. These teams they're blowing up their economic model. It's all failing. And now look, the Mets are back, the Padres are back, the Yankees are right there. So everything changes.
You want me to say I'm sorry?
No, it's just the world changes, right?
Okay.
So this is the other half of Angel's question. He goes, I'm going to miss Brent Honeywell. He had the coolest name in Dodgers history since Rick Honeycutt.
He was a very highly regarded pitcher with Tampa Bay, and then he hurt his elbow, and he bounced around and he lost his ability to pitch, and he wound up in Pittsburgh. He taught himself how to throw the screwball in Pittsburgh, and he started to pitch well, and then he wound up going to the Dodgers. Now, they DFA'd him because they got a roster numbers problem. They had to get somebody on the 40-man roster. Somebody had to come off, and he was the last guy there. So if he goes to Oklahoma City over this next month, I think he's going to come back if somebody else gets hurt. And you got Walker Buehler can't get people out, and Bobby Miller is just struggling with his mechanics and location. And if you can't trust either of them in the playoffs, you have to remove them from the playoff roster because you can't start them, then maybe Honeywell winds up. We just have to see when you are DFA'd. If I DFA you from this podcast, I have 10 days to trade you or release you or get you to agree to go do somebody else's podcast in the minor leagues. So there's a 10-day window for Honeywell to accept the assignment or the Dodgers to make a decision what they're going to do. Goes to Oak City. I bet maybe he comes back.
Dude's got a lot of skill. And I remember when he was on the Padres, I would watch him and I was always rooting for him because he was the big prospect. He had a lot of injuries, but you could tell that when he was on the mound, his mind was constantly going and he would get frustrated with himself or frustrated with the umpire. I think he's his own worst enemy.
Could be, but he was learning a new pitch. That takes time to configure how to control it. And, it's like Matt Waldron saved the Padres the first half of the season, and he's hit a wall. He's hit a wall with innings. I don't know if they've figured out the knuckleball or he's lost his faith in the knuckleball, and the knuckleball helps set up the 91-mile-an-hour fastball. To what you said early on the podcast, he's just become a mid-level pitcher who can't control the knuckleball, and he can't get by with a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, curveball, whatever else he throws. But it takes time, and Honeywell had to teach himself the screwball, and I was very impressed. When he pitched with the Padres, he was messing around with it. He went to the Dodgers, and he just started to throw it a lot. And like I say, anybody's got a 2.21 ERA should probably still be in the major leagues. He's just kind of a victim of these numbers crunch games that the Dodgers have to play now that they're getting all these injured guys back. But he goes to Oak City for another couple of weeks. He might be back, and he's already eligible to be on the postseason roster as, setup guy, long relief guy, etc.
Yeah. He'll land somewhere. But I do like Angel's point, Honeycutt, Honeywell. It's easy to mix those up, especially when they're both wearing Dodger uniforms.
All right, we move on. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Chris. And he says, saw frustrated Fryer sounding off from Oceanside. Pods have been seemingly 5 out or 6 games out for months, and the Dodgers lead is growing. Their depth and arrogance is allowing them to DFA 300 hitters like Rosario and clubhouse leader Jason Hayward. Arizona will not lose, and Tanner Scott is throwing beach balls. Damn it. Is it time to panic? Reaction.
Well, my reaction is I was concerned right from the get-go with the numbers and depth they have in the bullpen. I thought Mike Schilt was going to the bullpen an awful lot. Tanner Scott pitched 5 times in 7 days. He hasn't been the same since. So they got to be judicious how many times they call on certain guys here. But the Padres, let's be honest, Padres at one point were 9.5 back, and they got that number down to 2. Now that's when the Dodgers had the whole world on the disabled list. Now all these guys are coming off the IL, and the Dodgers they're hitting the ball better, although I still think the Dodgers are a little bit wafer thin in the pitching rotation. When we start playing real baseball in October, I don't know that you can afford to send Walker Buehler and Bobby Miller out to the mound. And you never know what you're getting from Kershaw from one start to the next. So that's 3 of your top 5 or 6 guys, John, because Yamamoto's still not back. And it does not appear there's going to be a reappearance of anybody else off the DL. So suddenly the Dodgers are really wafer thin in the starting rotation.
Yeah. And imagine, we get into the playoffs, you don't necessarily need 5 guys, but if you're not going to be playing like one of those little 1 or 3 game series, you're going to need 4, right? And remember, it used to be on a 7-game series, your number 1 would pitch on game 1, 4, and 7. They don't really even do that anymore, do they?
Well, again, some of the series are now best of 5. Or best of 3 in the first round, the wild card round. But some of that's got to do with days off because they do space it now. So it's just a different structure. And if you get rainouts in October in some of these northern cities, that kind of changes the whole thing. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers got to be concerned about this pitching situation because unless Yamamoto, and he's going to throw one more sim game, and then he's going to go to Oak City and he's going to throw rehab. But even if he comes back the second week of September, I think that's target date. He's only coming back to throw 40 or 50 pitches. He's coming back for 4 or 5 innings. He's not coming back the way he was before he got hurt. So the Dodgers suddenly, I just think, have a pitching shortage problem with the rotation. I mean, if you got to use bullpen days in the playoffs, pal, you got a problem.
it's just too much chaos with their roster.
It's called drama.
It's drama. Like you said, it's like a TV show. As a Padre fan, though, I'm not panicking for the Padres. I mean, they just beat Minnesota 2 out of 3. I mean,
and they beat Cleveland. They beat Baltimore. I mean,
Yeah.
they're playing really good ball. But there is no Kim, and their pitching staff's starting to look a little threadbare. You know, it's like I think everybody's holding their breath. Can Michael King just continue to dominate? Because he's well beyond what he ever threw before innings
he's not the problem.
No, I don't. I'm not saying problem,
Yeah.
but you wake all of a sudden he could be fatigued. We know what's happened to Waldron,
Right.
and I don't know if there's going to be a Yu Darvish sighting. I would think by the first week of September, if he's coming back, he needs to be back because he needs to get some game experience to get ready for whatever postseason looks like.
You know what's cool about the whole Yu Darvish deal is that, generally speaking, everyone's been very respectful of his situation.
Yes.
They haven't been probing, and usually the TMZ or someone will come up with some crazy storyline on this. So I'm hopeful he comes back. And if he's still throwing, he's working out, then I think there's a chance.
Yeah, but he'll also need ramp up time at the major league level.
Oh, of course.
He'll need rehab games, things of that nature. So we'll just track it as it goes. Chris, thank you for joining us on Fans Forum.
Okay, let's move on and let's go to we already worked in Cal. Let's go here to Neil. He had a couple of them. He goes, first of all, checking in from the Arco parking lot in San Dimas. But Neil went on to say, I thought it was kind of a funny one. He was taking a crack at me. Where was it? It's
you got to find that one.
Yeah, there it is.
You,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Vetting must have missed John's diverse sports knowledge to keep up with the saw.
Listen, it's all his responsibility. I would not be here doing this if it were not him. We would not be a success if it were not for me, because he does have crackpot opinions from left field, but that's okay. There's a balance here. He knows the IT technical stuff, and I know sports. Oh, no, I don't mean to say that.
No. I mean, but it is cool. I mean, speaking for myself, I've always been a longtime fan of you.
What the hell's wrong with you?
Well, this is the best 15 minutes in sports, man. I
Damn
never
right.
missed that back in the 90s. And so for me, I mean, I really mean this. It's just a thrill to be able to sit across the table with you and do
Thank
this
you.
twice a week.
You are right. I am bleeping brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. No,
it's awesome.
I shouldn't say that.
And you know more sports than, anyone in the world. And so it's amazing how you get questions like from every sport on every angle. And man, you have got data, not just a BS response. I mean, you have facts.
More times than not.
More, yeah, like probably 98% of the time, So I mean, this is all good. So I just
we're
try to
having
hang
fun.
out.
We respect each other. We give each other space. We do yell at each other off the air, and we do exchange text when he's yelling at the TV like I'm yelling at the TV.
Okay, here Gregory had a comment. He goes, "Hey, Lee, Patrick Lane is born in Finland, not Sweden."
I was close. I've visited both. That's right. Patrick Lane he was in Winnipeg, and he was a really good player. But he had a lot of issues with front office and coaches, and they traded him to Columbus. And Columbus turned out to be a miserable situation. And then he got hurt. And then Laine was put in the NHL substance program. And then he told Columbus, "I don't want to play here anymore." So when you kind of acted your way out of Winnipeg and out of Columbus, there's a reputation that's kind of tied like a tin can to your tail. So he's got a chance to, they need goal scorers. They got a lot of young players in Montreal. He's got a chance to be a star, but is he going to be a star? I think of him and I think about the other guy that was in Winnipeg, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, think about it. Those two guys are supposed to be the future of the Winnipeg Jets. And Dubois is on his fourth team now. The Kings got rid of him and shipped him to the Washington Capitals. So there's some guys that need to wake up and realize you're going to run out of places to play if you don't fix your reputation. The reputation for Laine is kind of tainted, but he's going into that's a situation where he could be the star leader. But I'll tell you what, playing at Montreal, the Montreal press, the Canadian press, the French press, that's like playing at Yankee Stadium. If you don't work hard, if you don't produce, if you screw up, they're going to make your life really miserable. So he's walking into a cauldron of controversy if he can't be a star player.
You've been to both Finland and Sweden?
Yes.
Which did you like more?
I liked all of them. I loved Norway. I just had a blast.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to Scandinavia. I hit all the places. I went to Amsterdam, northern Germany. Then I went to Finland, Sweden, Norway.
A lot of Vikings history there for you?
A lot of history on everything, including Carlsberg beer, which I kind of fell in love with again.
There you go.
I stood on a street corner in the first day in Amsterdam, coming out of the hotel. I stood waiting for the lights to change. And I sniffed. I said, "What is that?"
Oh.
That is what that is.
Yeah.
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 And then,
A little reefer madness.
yes. And then 2 blocks down from where we were with this tour group, it's blinking red lights. And if you turn left, you go into the red light district. And wifey wouldn't let me turn left. I want to go down and see it. The girls in the windows.
Yeah.
And I need photo validation that I was here. No, we're not going down there with that. But I went to Amsterdam, loved it, and went to Oslo. I wound up going to Helsinki, which is the home of the great award, academic award.
Oh, the Nobel.
Nobel.
Yeah.
I went to the Nobel headquarters. That was a really cool experience. And then I went to northern Norway, up on the fjords, which are magnificent. It was just, what an experience that was. So, and then Helsinki was flat country, and I was in southern part of Finland. Northern part is really different, but I was want to go to Lapland to see if I could find the guy that listened to our Charger broadcast that sent us the cassette.
Yeah. From at the top of Norway, right?
Yeah, top of Norway, Lapland, which is way up there with the reindeer.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, so I really love Scandinavia. It was a great, great experience. And then like I said, it was summer and it was hotter than Hades for some reason where I was. And I tried a Carlsberg beer, and I could sit there and drink that all afternoon and talk sports.
That's good living, man.
Yeah.
I love the TV show Vikings when they're in those fjords.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really good show. Okay. Gregory had another comment helping us out here. He says the LSU stadium nickname is Death Valley.
That's right. Baton Rouge, Death Valley.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love how these stadiums have like their own sort of brand, their
persona.
Their persona, the identity. What are some of your favorite stadiums you've visited?
I liked Autzen Stadium. It is so electric up in Eugene, Oregon. It's really cool. Husky Stadium, right on the lake, on Mont Lake. Beautiful facility. Coliseum's different. I like the Coliseum. I did Trojans football for 3 years, but it's so big. It's so mammoth. It's so old. It's got a different feel. Rose Bowl is kind of cool because you're sitting right there. I mean, you're right on top of the game in Pasadena. Arizona Stadium, home of the Wildcats, that's kind of off way back. Sun Devil Stadium was neat, at least Sun Devil Stadium when I was there, because that was massive. It was big. It was 72,000. Arizona State was really, really successful. Strangest one is a small stadium in Pullman, Washington State. It's like built into the side of the campus, and it's like seats 30,000. And you go there in late fall, man, the wind blows through Martin Stadium. It is so raw and so cold because it's up on the Palouse. It's near Spokane, and it gets cold up there. That's a tough place to play. As Mike Price, the coach, used to say, it's cougar weather. We love it up here. It's cougar weather. So didn't like Berkeley Stadium, home of Cal. Stanford's new stadium is neat, but it's empty because hardly anybody goes to the games, which is kind of sad because Stanford's had some good seasons under the former head coach, David Shaw. So I've been all these different places. Strangest place I broadcast from more recently, the Kibbe Dome, Moscow, Idaho. Dome Stadium for the University of Idaho Vandals. They play in a dome.
Yeah. They're the ones that have the field goal goalpost right against the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then Northern Arizona, the Lumberjacks, they play in a dome stadium in Flagstaff. But that's, they don't, if they get 12,000, that's a big crowd for them. It's just a strange environment.
Now, the Arizona State Stadium, if I remember, is sort of built into one of those red rock facades. And isn't that kind of near where the Angels spring training is too?
Well, that's Diablo Stadium. That's the other side of Tempe.
Okay.
But no, it's right on the edge of the campus. It's monstrously big. I mean, when I worked in Ohio, I'd been to Ohio State and Michigan games, and that's a phenomenal experience. And I came out here, and that was 72,000 at Sun Devil Stadium when I did Arizona State football. It was just a really different experience. But because it's so bloody hot there, we were in an enclosed press box. You had sound that was pumped into our headsets from a microphone, but that was a glass enclosed press box, air conditioned, because so unbelievably hot.
It's cool. Your history and all the places that you've been. I mean, literally, you could write 20 books. I bet.
No, I don't have time for 20 books because I'm doing this. Weirdest place I went, and I just revisited it when I first broke into broadcasting. And we'll get back to more important questions in a second. When I first broke into broadcasting, I did Division III football for a place called Hamilton College in upstate New York. Hamilton College Continentals.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a small Ivy League campus, etc. So we traveled. We played games in New England, at Bowdoin in Maine, and Tufts in Massachusetts, and Bill Belichick School, Williams College in Massachusetts. I did a game at St. Lawrence University up in way upstate New York, small academic school. And we played up there in November, and it's bloody cold in the northern Adirondacks, and we froze. So anyhow, about 4 years ago, I decided I was going to travel the Adirondacks, and I drove through the northern Adirondacks, upstate New York, and I wound up in Canton, New York, which is where St. Lawrence and Potsdam University are, and Clarkson College. So I parked in this lot and looked across the field. So that's the stadium I was in. So this was in 2021. So I got out and I walked across and I ran into somebody and they said, "You ever been here before?" I said, "Yeah, I broadcast a college football game here in 1972. It was funny. We froze our ass off. Oh, it was so cold. But that's the northern Adirondacks, almost up on the lake. So that's where I've been. That's what I've done. It's not important to anybody but me. It's a memory.
No, but it's good. I mean, people love stories
Yeah.
and walking, down memory lane. That's what you used to always say.
St. Lawrence University.
Okay. Let's get some social media folks here in on the business. And let's start here with a little Kaepernick and Chargers. This is from T-Bird. He says, Cap surely does not have more credibility than Easton Stick. Does Easton Stick take a knee at the national anthem? He was terrible at the end of his time with San Francisco. Terrible. He's everything we don't want on a team ever. Keep your own delusions away from the Chargers, please. Perez has shown promise as a backup. Nobody wants Cap. Nobody. 8 years after not being a marginal quarterback anyway. You hit a nerve.
Does that mean T-Bird didn't agree with my one man's opinion column? I understand it. It's not going to happen. He's been away from the NFL way too long. If he had accepted Harbaugh's offer, he probably would have been a coaching intern this past season. That might happen in February if he wants to get into coaching. I'm not going to run through the whole story, but I learned so much about Kaepernick after he was out of the NFL that I had a much different appreciation of who he is. And I'll tell you what he's done in each of his communities. He's a special guy. You may not agree so as it relates to the flag, but what he's done from a charitable standpoint to help the homeless, to help after school programs, he's funded it all himself. And he went to Ghana, dirt poor Ghana in Africa, and gave them a check for $1 million to build a pediatric care center hospital. So everybody's got a different opinion on Kaepernick. I just have a little bit of a different view, but he's not going to play ever again because he's been out way too long. But he might wind up in February. If I'm still here doing this podcast, if this guy is still here with me, we might be talking about Kaepernick coming in to work with Harbaugh as a college intern or a coaching intern. We'll see what he brings to the table from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's all very interesting, the Kaepernick thing. But for some people, it don't matter what he does.
Sure.
If he could donate $1 gazillion to whoever needs it, he is still going to be the devil incarnate to certain people.
Okay. He didn't agree with my one man's opinion column, but that's why you should check my website because I write a lot of different stuff every day of the week.
Okay, let's go here. This is a good topic about the Rookie of the Year controversy. This is from Anna Martinez and says, how can anyone compare these two? Just keeping it real, no comparison. Merrill is clutch for Rookie of the Year. Love that he could care less and just wants to go play good baseball.
Yeah, exactly. And again, everybody said, well, Paul Skeens, the Pittsburgh rookie pitcher out of LSU, who just roared through the minor leagues and got there in 15 minutes. He had the great start. I think he was 4-0 or 5-0 out of the gate. It's kind of caught up to him now. And the Pirates are thinking of putting an innings cap on him and shorten his outings because he's gotten racked his last 5 starts. I think his ERA was 5.60. So he's a little bit fatigued right now. And again, Jackson Merrill's playing every minute of every game of every day, and he's hitting in and around 300, and he's playing Gold Glove type outfield, and he steals bases, and he hits home runs. So I think he's Rookie of the Year, and I don't know anybody, maybe A.J. Preller, anybody that could have thought this kid was going to do this when he went to camp as somebody's shortstop and they wound up in center field.
It's been awesome to watch this guy. And I saw a review, a coach was looking at video of the way he hits and how the plane of his swing changes if the ball is at the top of the zone or at the bottom of the zone. And it's sort of an advanced approach for hitting that you would never in a million years expect from a 21-year-old kid. Yeah. But you said what was interesting is that you said he's getting near 300. And I know he's hitting like 289, 290, something like that. But isn't it interesting that there's only a handful of people in the NL that are hitting over 300? So besides the fact that Merrill, if he gets hot again, he could win the title, which would be amazing. But why aren't we seeing more 300 hitters?
Because the pitching staffs throw wicked stuff. And then when you get to the sixth inning, then you're facing this myriad of relievers who throw wicked stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the base explanation. You explained to me how Ohtani with 39 home runs could be hitting 151 since the end of June.
That is mind-blowing to me. I mean, a lot of things I can sort of rationalize, but I cannot rationalize that one at all.
And you'd say fatigue, but he's not doing anything except studying pitchers and video and swinging a bat 4 times a game. He's not playing in the outfield, running into walls. He's not pitching. And I say nothing negative about Ohtani because this is a generational player I don't think we'll ever see again. But you think back to all his preparation with the Angels and what he had to do as a batter and what he had to do to pitch once a week between starts, bullpen sessions, and study video of the next lineup he's going to throw against and study the video of the pitcher he's going to face that night as the Angels DH. I don't know if enough hours in the day and his mental fortitude not to burn out doing it. Well, yeah, he's just a special guy. But dude is hitting 151 since June, which is a shocker to me.
Yeah, plus he's dealing with all the controversy about the gambling thing too.
That's in the past.
But even with a low batting average, like around, you said 147 last time, I bet his OPS is still probably over 900.
That's because he does hit a lot of doubles and he does hit a lot of home runs. Mm-hmm. That's remarkable. See, his batting average is still around 300 despite what's happened since the last week of June.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you for the comment, and I do believe Jackson Merrill will be on a Zoom call with us at the end of the season, Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
That's cool.
All right, let's move on here, and we'll go here to where is it? It's this one. This is Sausage Skippy. He goes, I'll tell you, this is, talking about Raider Nation. He goes, I'll tell you after week 8, in terms of if Raiders had enough to compete. P.S. My Labrador and my 5-month-old granddaughter still have the same number of Super Bowl rings as your beloved Chargers.
Well, Sausage Man, why don't you just worry about the opening weekend of the season at SoFi Stadium? Gardner Minshew, Justin Herbert. Because we'll just have to wait and see what happens in week 1. Because if the Raiders are going to be what you think the Raiders are going to be at week 8, they better win week 1 against the Bolts. And that'll be impressive if they do. But that's Gardner Minshew, who's hot and cold, the gunslinger. That's Gardner Minshew lining up against Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. This new look package of linebackers are 7 deep at linebacker, and that's Jesse Minter's blitz team. This Gardner Minshew has taken 105 quarterback sacks in his career for 49 or 51 career starts, whatever the number is. So let's just see what happens in week 1, and then we can argue more about where the Raiders are going to be in week 2, or as you would say, week 8. It's going to be, I can't wait for the NFL season to start. I just love the matchups.
Oh, it's going to be awesome, especially week 1 for these two teams facing off against each other. It's interesting when you shared the numbers about Minshew, and he has more touchdowns than games played, which is good. You'd expect that. But the ratio was like 2 touchdowns for every 1 interception, where you need that to be like 4-1, 6-1.
No, 51-24, that's a great ratio. But then when you tack on 30 fumbles.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. And then you tack on, I think it was 105 quarterback sacks. That's just way too much indecision making plays. Mm-hmm. So we'll just find out opening weekend, and then Skippy will be back, and either I'll be paying him off or he'll be buying beer for all of us.
Yeah, Raider fans still will never forget the fact that they have 3 Super Bowl rings. Can never take it away from them, and it just pisses Charger fans off to no end.
That was back in the day. I mean, that was a few third downs ago.
Yeah, that was Ken Stabler and 2 Jim Plunketts, if I recall.
That's true.
Yeah, so that was a long time. Okay, let's get the last social media in here. A little more Dodger comments. This is from RVR Saki. It says, it's MLB, and they had that stupid pitching clock. Pitchers can't rest their arms, and no tar on the ball. You have to grip the ball harder to throw it.
Well, pitchers have to grip the ball harder if they're going to throw with the violent arm action and the ball movement now. You know, I had a pitcher explain to me the grip that they have to use. So you get the grip, the violent arm action, and the velocity. And the wear and tear factor here is unbelievable because of the grip. Everybody's doing it because that makes them unhittable. They're doing it so they can have a big payday. And as John and I have tracked during the course of the year, there have now been 53 elbow ligament surgeries since the last week of February. That's star pitchers. That's top young prospects. That's 53 guys facing 14 to 18 months out of baseball because everybody wants to do this, even though there's great risk doing this. And you can't convince these pitchers not to do it because they want to excel and they want to be stars, and that means mega contracts. It's tough. Would I do it? I'd have to think long and hard before if I do that, because I'm putting my career at unbelievable risk. I mean, 5 of the top Dodger minor leaguers who've been in the show and pitched and now got hurt, they've all had the same injury. So there's a big question. Are the Dodgers counseling them maybe not to do this because you know what's going to happen? Big issue.
Well, the incentive structure is such that they're going to do everything they can to throw 105 miles an hour and have just a wicked slider, because that's how they're getting paid. But it's interesting he brings up the pitch clock. A lot of people are blaming that. The sticky stuff, which I was surprised was it legal before they banned it, or did they just not enforce it?
They didn't enforce it, and then it became happenstance. It happened a lot. And then they started to crack down. If we're going to crack down on your guy using steroids in San Francisco, we're going to crack down on my pitcher loading up.
Yeah.
And so they have. I mean, the minute you get caught, you get ejected. Doesn't matter what the explanation of the appeal is. You're gone 10 games. 10 games out of a pennant race is a lot. 10 games is a lot of salary that you don't get. But yet there's still some guys think they can hide this stuff inside their glove or behind their ear, etc. So, but they crack down on that just like they crack down on this. Now pitchers who used to use rosin and sweat as a way to grip the ball can't even really use that. And now that's why the pitchers have gone to this delivery with this pitcher, which puts all the stress on your elbow.
Yeah. I mean, I could totally see it, because sometimes you ever get a brand new baseball that's slippery.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really hard to throw it. And if the seams are kind of shallow, there's nothing to really push off of when you throw the ball.
Well, they use Mississippi mud. Mm-hmm. The home team does. They rub all the balls up. There's 24 dozen balls that get treated with Mississippi Delta mud to take the shine off it, to make it more gritty so you can handle it.
Well, what about Gaylord Perry? Because he threw the spitball. But the spitball, I can't imagine. I mean, is it literally spit that people put on the ball?
Or Vaseline or some substance.
Vaseline, I could see how that would affect it. I always wondered how spitting on a ball was going to really make it dance more.
Well,
it's just the grip, right?
It's the grip. Your fingers are wet.
Yeah.
Now you can't do that in baseball when you're on the mound. You stand on the back of the mound. Guys do this all the time.
Yeah, it reminds me of Joe Montana.
Yeah, man, but you have to wipe it off, etc. But Gaylord Perry is unbelievable. The stories of Gaylord Perry and the Yankees, Billy Martin. I was working in Cleveland at that point when Gaylord was towards the end of his career, and he's still a vibrant pitcher. And he was loading stuff up and striking guys out and throwing one-hitters. And Billy Martin would go crazy. And Martin would come out of the dugout and he would challenge the umpire, go out there. You got to go out there. I have a right to ask you to go out there because he's loading the ball. And they'd go out and they'd look on his belt and they'd look at his hat and look in his glove. And they couldn't find it. And Billy got thrown out of a game. So there was a game in Cleveland where he came out of the dugout and he was raising hell. And he pointed to the dugout and they had from the clubhouse, somebody had brought a pointer dog, a German pointer dog who was on the dugout steps. And Billy Martin told the umpire, I'm going to let this dog loose because he can sniff drugs and illegal stuff. And he's going to run to the mound and he's going to sniff Gaylord Perry. The umpire threw him out of the game for that. Get that dog out of the dugout. And Billy Martin would just have a nervous breakdown over Gaylord Perry. But that was a different era, and they've changed the whole game since that point in time.
Does that remind you of Buck Showalter and Joe Musgrove?
Well, yeah. Check his ears.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't find anything, and then Joe's walking off the mound.
It's awesome.
You're not
Good
cheating. You're
stories.
not trying. Good stuff. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our